Elias Turner woke before dawn, the way he always did, to the creak of old wood and the smell of dust and dry grass. The ranch had been quiet for years now, too quiet. Since his parents were buried on the hill behind the barn, every morning felt heavier than the last. He saddled his horse with practiced hands, counted the coins in his pocket, and told himself that today was simple. He would ride to the trading post, buy a healthy cow, and come back before nightfall. A cow meant milk, work, and something living to tend to. It meant purpose. The road stretched long and empty, broken only by wind and the sound of hooves against hard earth. At the trading post, Elias found what he came for, a sturdy brown cow with calm eyes. He paid, tied the rope, and started the journey home, already imagining the routine his days would settle into again. But the sky had other ideas. Dark clouds gathered fast, rolling in like an army. Thunder cracked so loud it rattled his chest, and rain came down in sharp, unforgiving sheets. The cow grew restless, and Elias was forced to guide her toward a narrow canyon he barely remembered from old maps. As he searched for shelter, a sound cut through the storm. Not thunder, not wind, but singing. It was soft and steady, carrying a sadness that made his chest ache. Elias followed it deeper into the canyon until he saw a small fire burning impossibly bright against the rain. Beside it stood a woman. She didn't flinch when she noticed him. Her long black hair clung to her shoulders, her clothes marked with careful stitching, her eyes dark and sharp as the night sky. She looked at him as if she already knew his name. When he spoke, awkwardly explaining the storm, the cow, the mistake of being lost, she listened without interrupting. "My name is Nayeli," she said at last, her voice calm and grounded. "Nothing comes here by accident." They shared the fire while the storm passed, speaking little, yet understanding much. Elias felt something shift inside him, like a door he'd forgotten was there slowly opening. By morning, the rain was gone. The cow had wandered off sometime in the night. Elias should have panicked. Instead, he felt strangely at peace. When Nayeli stood and said she would travel with him, that she had nothing left behind her and something unknown ahead, Elias didn't argue. As they rode out of the canyon together, he realized the truth with quiet awe. He had gone out to buy a cow, but fate had rewritten the journey. Elias felt the weight of every stare the moment they entered town. The familiar streets, once dull and predictable, now seemed tight and unforgiving, as if the buildings themselves were leaning in to judge. Nayeli rode beside him with a calm that unsettled even the hardest men. She sat straight, her chin lifted, her expression unreadable, as though she had already faced harsher places than this narrow-minded town could ever be. Whispers followed them like dust. A shopkeeper paused mid-motion, hands frozen over a crate of grain. A woman pulled her child closer. Someone laughed under their breath, sharp and unkind. Elias's pulse thudded in his ears, anger rising, but Nayeli's presence grounded him. She did not look away. She did not shrink. At the ranch, silence wrapped around them again, but this time it felt different. Nayeli walked the land slowly, touching the fence posts, kneeling to feel the soil between her fingers. She spoke softly about the earth, about how land remembered kindness and cruelty both. That night, by the fire, she told Elias pieces of her story, how her people had been pushed from place to place, how promises were made and broken until trust became a dangerous thing. She did not speak with bitterness, only truth. "I will not pretend this life will be easy," she said, meeting his eyes. "But I do not offer fear. I offer loyalty, honesty, and work." The next days tested those words. When Elias went to town for supplies, prices doubled. Some refused to sell at all. A neighbor warned him, not unkindly, that trouble followed choices like his. Elias returned home furious, but Nayeli listened, then simply asked what needed doing next. She rose before dawn, learned the rhythm of the ranch, and surprised Elias with her knowledge. She treated a sick calf with herbs she gathered near the creek. She mended torn tack with steady hands. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the land responded. Animals calmed around her. Crops grew stronger. Even the wind felt less harsh. At night, they talked about loss, about hope, about what it meant to choose a future instead of inheriting one. Nayeli admitted her fear of being unwanted, of bringing danger into Elias's life. He confessed his loneliness, the hollow years he'd learned to endure instead of live. When he told her she belonged there, not because of him, but because she chose it, something in her softened. The town had not accepted her, and maybe never would, but within the boundaries of that ranch, something solid was taking root. Against expectation, against tradition, they were building a life that refused to be erased. The trouble arrived one afternoon in the form of 3 men on horseback, their coats stiff, their words sharper than their spurs. Elias saw them from the porch and felt his stomach tighten before they ever spoke. Naeli stood beside him, her hand resting lightly against the doorframe, as if she already understood what was coming. The men claimed authority, claimed documents and borders, claimed that Naeli did not belong where she stood. They spoke of rules written far away by people who had never touched this land, never breathed its dust, never listened to its silence. Elias stepped forward before fear could slow him. His voice shook at first, then steadied. He said Naeli was his wife, his family, his future. He said she had chosen this place and had harmed no one. The men scoffed, warning him of consequences, of isolation, of ruin. Through it all, Naeli remained still, her gaze unwavering, her strength quiet but unbreakable. When one of the men turned to her and demanded she come with them, she answered simply that she would not go where love was not welcome. The standoff ended without violence, but not without cost. For weeks afterward, the ranch felt watched. Supplies grew harder to find. Letters went unanswered. Elias wondered late at night if standing firm had doomed them both. On those nights, Naeli would sit beside him, telling stories of her ancestors, of survival stitched together by courage and patience. She reminded him that fear only wins when it is obeyed. Time, slow and stubborn, did what arguments could not. A drought struck nearby farms, but Elias's land held. Neighbors noticed. One man came quietly asking for help with a sick horse. Naeli treated it without hesitation. Another followed, then another. Words softened. Eyes changed. Children, once kept away, now ran along the fence, laughing. One evening, as the sun sank low and painted the fields gold, Elias realized the ranch no longer felt like a battleground. It felt like a home. Naeli stood beside him, her hair lifted by the breeze, her face calm in a way that spoke of hard-won peace. She admitted she still feared being taken away, still feared that the world might not allow happiness to last. Elias took her hands and told her that whatever came, they would face it together, rooted in choice rather than permission. Years later, people would repeat the story with wonder and disbelief. They would say a man went out to buy a cow and came back with an Apache bride. But those who truly knew understood the deeper truth. He did not return with something he owned. He returned with someone who chose him, chose the land, and chose a shared future strong enough to outlast borders, papers, and fear.